It was a quiet Thursday morning in Yucaipa, California, the kind of morning nothing ever happens.
I noticed a smell from my baby, so I wanted to change it before I walked into the store. I took him out of the car seat and I laid him on the chair, and I had his diapers right here, and then someone said hola, and I couldn't even turn, and that was just, I don't remember nothing. I got up off the floor and I didn't see my child. Someone took him from me.
A mother pulls into the Big 5 parking lot holding her son, 7 months old, Emmanuel Haro. She says she stepped out to change his diaper. She says someone came up behind her. She says she blacked out. When she woke, her son was gone. No witnesses. No screams. No suspect. In minutes, a missing persons call turns into something darker. People demand an Amber Alert. Police refuse, saying there's no confirmed evidence of a stranger and no suspect description. Confusion turns into suspicion. The mother who begged for help suddenly stops cooperating. Her statements shift. Surveillance, she said, didn't exist, exists. And the community that poured into the streets to search begins whispering, not about an outsider, but about her, and what this case might really be hiding. So tonight, ask yourself this. Was this a true abduction, or the start of a lie so cold it leaves a baby missing and a family in pieces? Most of us will listen for a few minutes and go back to our day. Emmanuel will never get that chance. Somewhere, a tiny child who couldn't yet say his name vanished into air. Days pass. Social media moves on. The urgency fades. But picture this. A crib still made, baby clothes never washed, a toy that still squeaks in a quiet room. That's what's left. Meanwhile, the mother refuses to help investigators. The father has a criminal history involving child cruelty. The surveillance footage raises more questions than answers. One small truth remains. Someone knows what happened. Before we allow this to become one more forgotten missing child case, listen. If our silence, our scrolling, our distraction let this slip away, we may be the last people who could have helped. If that makes you uneasy, good. Babies don't simply vanish. Lies do. If you believe in justice, subscribe to the channel. We just passed 4,000 subscribers because of you. Let's push to 5,000, 6,000, 10,000.
Hit subscribe.
Tell me where you're watching from. When we reach our goals, I'll send my thanks. We're building a community that fights for truth. Thursday, August 14th, 2025. The mother says she drove into the parking lot around 9:26 a.m. She says Emmanuel was fussy, so she parked away from other cars to change him. She says she stepped out holding him, felt a sudden blow to the back of her head, and lost consciousness. She says when she woke up, he was gone. Investigators logged the 911 call at 9:41 a.m., roughly 15 minutes unaccounted for. 15 minutes in which a 7-month-old allegedly vanished. Police arrived fast. Store staff were questioned. Nobody remembers a scream. Nobody recalls seeing a baby in distress or anyone running away with a child. An employee told officers, "I just remember seeing her car," then the police. K-9 teams comb the area, helicopters hover, checkpoints go up across Yucaipa. Still, no clothing, no discarded diaper bag, no blanket on the roadside. And still, no Amber Alert.
Why?
Because police say they didn't have a confirmed suspect description or vehicle, a required part of the alert protocol. The public was outraged. Isn't this a missing baby reason enough? But investigators were already asking the harder question. Was there even an abduction? As the timeline was replayed, details started to unravel. The mother said there were no security cameras in that lot. Detectives found one, mounted on a rooftop, motion-activated, recording. The footage didn't match her story. It showed her walking, standing, and kneeling beside her vehicle. There was no one rushing up behind her. No scuffle, no collision, no obvious attack. For detectives, that was a direct contradiction, not a small memory lapse, but a deliberate denial that allowed her story to avoid verification. When that footage leaked, the mother's credibility collapsed. Law enforcement publicly said her statements were inconsistent, and she had stopped cooperating. Reporters started using words like staged abduction and foul play suspected. The horrifying realization for many: if there was no stranger on camera and the child still disappeared, then either someone erased themselves from the footage, or the person who spoke to that camera first is the very one telling the story. At first, she sounded frantic, voice trembling, hands shaking, pleading for Emmanuel's return. But as days passed, her account shifted. In one interview, she said the attacker came from the left. Later, she said he approached from behind. She said she was unconscious for 10 minutes, then said it felt like 30 seconds. EMTs who saw her reported she seemed oriented and responsive, not dazed. Detectives noticed other small tells. She blinked strangely when asked about the timeline, avoided the word kidnapped, and used vague phrasing like, he disappeared, or he was just gone. In one clip, asked if she'd seen someone suspicious, she glanced away before answering. These aren't trivial errors. They are foundational. Investigators described it like watching someone rehearsed in grief rather than living it. The inconsistencies piled up. She became highly specific about things that didn't matter and vague about the things that did. Then she stopped answering calls, canceled interviews, and hired a lawyer. Suddenly, the parent of a missing child became a person of interest. Detectives then turned attention to another figure, Emmanuel's father, Jake Haro. Initially presented as a grieving dad, records showed a 2023 felony conviction for child cruelty. He's also facing weapons-related charges. Child Protection Services had previously been involved with the family. This was not a stable household, but a home with a record of violence. A Child Safety Foundation had pledged a $5,000 reward for Emmanuel's return. When the father's record and the mother's inconsistencies surfaced, the foundation pulled back its support. That raised alarms. Why abandon a search unless you suspect the parents might not be victims, but possible suspects? People began asking if the disappearance was a cover-up, if something terrible had already happened at home. The father gave no public interviews after the investigation shifted inward. Some said silence is grief. Others said silence is strategy. Detectives started to wonder if the timeline was off by hours or even days. If the baby was harmed in the home earlier, the parking lot story could be a crafted distraction, a stage set to buy time. Search crews didn't stop. Yucaipa saw one of its largest operations in years. K-9 units swept the parking lot, alleys, trash bins, and drainage ditches. Helicopters scanned from above with thermal imaging. Volunteers combed parks, fields, and clusters of trees, looking for a onesie, a bottle, a toy. Hours became days. No infant, no clothing, no blood, no footprints. One officer called the scene eerily clean. In most abductions, something is left: a blanket, a tire tread, a path. Here, nothing. The search radius widened to empty fields, back roads, nearby canyons. Cadaver dogs were called in, a sign investigators feared the worst. Still, no scent, no trace of decomposition, no personal items. Volunteers had emotional breakdowns. One woman sobbed during a live report. As hope drained, suspicion grew. Why search empty fields when the story fails to add up? On the fourth night, the town lit candles. Hundreds gathered in the park with posters of a smiling infant taped to trees. Neighbors cried. Children held signs reading, "Bring Emmanuel home." Pastors prayed. Volunteers bowed their heads. Yet in private forums and chats, the tone shifted. People whispered, "Are we being lied to? Are we lighting candles for a child who was never taken?" Online comments turned vicious. Some said the mother's tears seemed staged. Others attacked the father, calling for his arrest. A few clung to hope. Maybe the baby is still out there. But many feared this vigil was for a fate already decided long before that 911 call. Investigators sketched out 3 chilling possibilities. 1. An opportunistic stranger snatched the infant. Stranger abductions are among the most feared crimes, but they usually leave traces, a path, a vehicle, a witness. This case left none. 2. A staged abduction by a parent or guardian. The idea the public talks about most, that the baby died earlier from neglect, an accident, or abuse, and an abduction story was created to cover that truth. Evidence that points here: the father's criminal record, the mother's contradictions and lack of cooperation, and surveillance footage showing no attacker. 3. A third-party accomplice. Someone known to the parents, a friend, relative, or acquaintance, could have taken the child to hide abuse or as part of a distressing agreement. A handoff framed later as a violent abduction would explain calm behavior in the lot, the lack of struggle, and why the mother insisted there were no cameras. The truth may not be a random monster in the dark. It may be a calculated decision with layers of manipulation. The question now is not only where Emmanuel is, but who knew and who helped. 7 months old gone. A story full of holes, a town full of doubt, and a child who never had the chance to speak his own defense. As days pass, cases like this fade from the news. New tragedies take headlines. Emmanuel could become just another name people scroll past. But there's no closure without truth. If you know anything, if you heard something that morning in the parking lot on August 14th, this is the moment to speak. Justice doesn't start with proof. It starts when someone tells the truth. If you have information, come forward. Because somewhere someone knows. And the silence that followed has been louder than any scream. 7 months old and gone. What really happened to Emmanuel Haro?